So in this chapter, we have the quest completed. He makes it to the ogre's castle, and finds the princesses and frees them. Well, he does free them. He pays for them to go, and we find out that Sandy is somewhat delusional. She would babble on and tell tall tales, but she legitimately thought that the pig herds were ogres and that the pigs were princesses. And so she wanted them freed. So the boss is like, well, I can write down and I can kill 3 pig herders and I can steal their pigs, or I can just go over there and pay them. And because he is the boss and in charge of the tax collectors and in charge of the tax collecting, he has pretty much all the money he wants. Plus, he makes his own. We talked about this in previous chapters. He makes his own money in addition to all the money he collects. So he has essentially endless money. He's like, okay, 16 pennies, I'll buy all the pigs. He buys the pigs and he takes them along. Now, this whole chapter reminds me a lot of Don Quixote. So Don Quixote is a novel by Miguel de Cervantes. It's a Spanish novel that's 500 years old. And it talks about a man, a farmer, nice, fairly well-off farmer who has a plot of land and has cows and all of this stuff and a plow horse. And he decides that what the world really needs is knights in shining armor. The classic heroes like Arthur and El Cid and all of these other guys. And so he decides he's going to become one. So he gets out an old set of armor and he gets a lance and he gets on his plow horse and he gets his farmhand and calls the farmhand the squire. And he goes off in search of adventure. And part of this adventure is fighting giants. But the giants aren't actually giants. The giants are just windmills. So, and everyone around him, Sancho Panza, his farmhand, is like, Don Quixote, it's not giant, it's a windmill. And Don Quixote is like, no, it's enchanted. I'm going to kill it. He goes and he tries to lance the windmill and fails, and then he sees it as a windmill. It's like, oh, they must have used magic to change. So the boss realizes that Sandy is seeing these things as they are, and there's no way of convincing her otherwise. And there are a lot of cases where people get a delusion or a confusion stuck in their head. And it doesn't matter what reality is. It doesn't matter what you tell them. They will stick to it. And the thing is that this can happen to perfectly rational people. You tell them something, and if it doesn't fit their mindset, if it doesn't fit what they believe, then they'll just ignore the evidence. They won't hear what you say. They'll think you said something else. And it's really kind of cool and really kind of frustrating that people get these ideas stuck in their heads. That's like, this is an absolute truth. And when the absolute truth turns out to be not so absolute, they just like, no. They don't hear what you say. They ignore what you say. And they get stuck at it. So the boss is like, okay, I'm just going to play along with this and say, okay, freed the ladies. Got rid of the ogres. Everything is good. So, he plays along into this. The chapter started out with a knight coming along selling toothbrushes and tooth powder. And he was sent off by another knight to sell toothbrushes and tooth powder to a group of people who happened to be the ones just freed from prison. And because they had been in the prison for so long, all of their teeth fell out, which is a thing that happens with malnutrition, with not taking care of yourself. And So here he was, all of these people, no teeth, and he's like, I'm going to kill the other knight. And the other knight was stove polish. And he said, the boss said, well, I haven't invented the stove yet, but I want them to have polished stoves even before they know what stoves are, which is kind of silly. Um, and as this goes back to the whole bootstrapping of technology thing. You don't really have stove polish until you have stoves, though admittedly most stoves don't really get polished. Because usually they're metal and contain fire and get all smoky. And I mean, you can clean, but in terms of a polish, usually not. I mean, if you're to think about the old cast iron potbelly stoves, they're cast iron, and cast iron is black. Pretty much no matter what you do with it, cast iron is going to be black. Unless, of course, it gets